Hey friends, welcome back. I've been really wanting to make this video much sooner than I've been able to, but it's been a really long weekend. I did get a lot done, but so for the first part, we're going to take this list of names in sections because that's the best way to do it. Remember, we were talking about the largest Trojan horse in history, and this regards the infiltration of the U.S. government by many of these departments from private organizations. And basically it discusses how, how all of these horrible dominoes have been set up to ultimately fall. So we're talking about an era, this is a roster of trilateral and CFR membership from 1979. And we're talking about like a Carter era administration. So as we go through, I went through and I compiled, I just did wiki searches and stuff like that. It wasn't really in depth, but what I did is I just went and I did a Google search for all of these names on this list. And some people I was able to find more information for than others. But I think we're going to probably stop at Robert Bowie, and we'll take each of these four rosters, these four columns of names, and we'll divide them in half. So the first one, L.W. Abel, I believe this is Lester Abel. I was not able to find much information on him at all, if any. David Abshire, well, there is a Lester Abel Jr. that comes up, but I do not believe it's the same individual. Okay, David Manker Abshire, former United States Permanent Representative to NATO, presided over the Center for Studies of Presidency and Congress, passed away October 31st, 2014, but served as a special counselor to the president, as a special counselor to President Reagan. He was elected president of the Richard Lounsbury Foundation in New York, member of the exclusive Alfalfa Club, which I'm from an agricultural land, and an alfalfa club doesn't sound that glamorous to me. It doesn't sound like diamonds and secret committees. Abshire was a Republican and the author of 7 books. He was a member of the Advisory Council of Victims of Communist Memorial Foundation, sat on the Advisory Board of America Abroad Media. So this is interesting to me too, because as the President's Foreign Intelligence Advisory Board from 81 to 82 and the Presidential Task Force of the Government of International Broadcasting in 1991, why does the government need these recurring councils on government broadcasting? Is this just in correlation to control what is said out of the White House? I mean, it has to be, but we know that the Rockefeller trilateral CFR, the whole group, if you will, largely controls the media anyway, and what is spoken and what is read or what is printed is also very, very heavily regulated. So moving on, Hugh Gardner Ackley, he was an American economist and diplomat, served as a member of the Council of Economic Advisors under President Kennedy, and as the chairman under President Lyndon Johnson. He served as an ambassador to Italy from 68 to 69. Okay, Doris Anderson is next. I could not find much on her either. And now keep in mind, when I did a general search, some obituaries came up because a lot of these individuals are like, God rest their souls. The ones that are still alive are 95, 93 and 95. And most of these people are 100, 105 now. So all I found was her obituary. Okay, so it says that she was born in Moorland, Kansas, and lived there through her school years. After school, she accepted a position in Washington, D.C., working with the U.S. government, where she worked for 10 years. And that's it. So we don't know much about Doris Anderson Long, as the obituary says, or if even it is the same individual or just merely coincidental. John Bradamus or John Bradamus, Stephen John Bradamus Jr., he passed away July 11th, 2016. He was an American politician and educator originally from Indiana. served as Majority Whip of the United States House of Representatives for the Democratic Party from 77 to 81, at the conclusion of a 20-year career as a member of the U.S. House of Representatives. In addition to major legislative accomplishments, including much federal legislation pertaining to school, arts, and humanities, he served as the 13th president of the New York University from 1981 to 1992, and was a member of, and subsequently the chairman of the board of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. In addition, he was a member of the New York Stock Exchange and the Rockefeller Foundation. So like I said, you're going to hear these names recurring a lot. Okay, and I have a lot of information on him, but I'm just going to skip through it. Interestingly enough, we have, let's see, quite a bit of information on him. He was just quite the scholar. He was a very well-studied man. John Baird Anderson, February 15, 1922 to December 3rd, 2017, was a United States congressman and presidential candidate from Illinois. As a member of the Republican Party, he represented Illinois' 16th congressional district from 61 through 81. He ran as an independent campaign for president, and he received 6.6% of the popular vote. So he ran against Carter and Nixon as an independent, and, he ran against Carter and Reagan. Why did I say Nixon? Oh, because here it says he strongly criticized the Vietnam War as well as President Richard Nixon's actions during the Watergate scandal. I knew I saw Nixon somewhere in there. Okay, after the election, he resumed his legal career and helped found Fair Vote, an organization that advocates electoral reform such as instant runoff voting. He won a lawsuit against the state of Ohio, Anderson versus Celebrezze, that's Celebrezze, in which the Supreme Court struck down early filing deadlines for independent candidates. Okay. Anne Armstrong is next, and so her middle name is spelled Legendre, and I would definitely call her the legendary Anne Armstrong, because this woman served through 3 administrations. She passed away July 30th, 2008. She was a United States diplomat and politician. She was the first woman to serve as counselor to the president and as the United States ambassador to the United Kingdom, serving in those capacities under the Ford, Nixon, and Carter administrations. She was the recipient of the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 1987. Born in New Orleans, graduated Vassar College. Let's see. Gives a lot of her personal biography. So from 66 to 68, she was the vice chairman of the Texas Republican Party. 71 to 73, she was the co-chairman of the Republican National Committee and the keynote speaker at the 72 Republican National Convention. She was the first woman from either major party to keynote at a national convention. Nixon named her as a counselor to the president December 19th, 1972, which she held until November 1974 under President Ford. During her tenure as counselor, Armstrong founded the first Office of Women's Programs in the White House. Let's see. At the 1976 Republican National Convention in Kansas City, Missouri, there was a draft effort to put Armstrong on the ticket as the vice presidential nominee, with incumbent President Gerald Ford. Senator Robert Dole of Kansas was instead chosen by Ford, and in 78, Armstrong supported George Bush in his successful primary challenge. Let's see. So she received the Presidential Medal of Freedom by Ronald Reagan, received an honorary doctorate of law from St. Mary's University in 78. In addition to her public life, Armstrong served on the boards of many U.S. corporations, including American Express, Boise Cascade, Halliburton, and General Motors. She also served on the board of nonprofit organizations such as the Center for Strategic and International Studies, and was a member of the founding council of the Rothermere American Institute and the University of Oxford. Okay, J. Paul Austin. You might know this name, John Paul Austin. He also passed away December 26, 1985, but he left quite a legacy, and if you don't know who he was the chairman, president, and CEO of the Coca-Cola Company. From 1962 to 1981, Austin oversaw the growth of the company from $567 million in sales to a $5.9 billion global force, an unprecedented growth that has not been replicated ever since. Okay, talks about a trade ban that he had with China. He had a 30-year ban. Coca-Cola briefly entered the wine business in the late 70s. 1977, Austin helped to create the Wine Spectrum, a subsidiary of Coca-Cola that consisted of Sterling Vineyards, Monterey Vineyards, and the Taylor Wine Company. In 1983, the Wine Spectrum was acquired by Joseph Seagram and Sons for more than a $200 million cash purchase. DuPont, do you guys know that Seagram's ironically holds 25% stock in DuPont? And they make things like ballistic jackets for war. Just something to know. Okay, George Wildman Ball. It's probably Wildeman, but it's spelled Wildman, so I'm going to call him Wildman. He was a U.S. government official and lawyer. He was an American diplomat and banker. He served in the management of the State Department from 61 to 66 and remembered as the only major dissenter against the escalation of the Vietnam War. So he was very outspoken against the war. He was Undersecretary of State from 61 to 66 in the administrations of Kennedy and Johnson. He warned both presidents that the U.S. could not win a guerrilla war, and he very, very strongly objected to increasing U.S. troops in Vietnam. His prophetic counsel was ignored. However, the U.S. involvement escalated from 400 advisors to more than 500,000 ground troops. So George Wildman Ball went on to joined the Kennedy administration as Undersecretary of State for Economic Affairs, but he was soon elevated to Undersecretary of State and advised Kennedy during the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis. He resigned in 1966 to return to his law practice. He remained ambassador to the United Nations in 1968. Let's move along here. Lucy Benson. Now, she is someone who, as far as I know, is still alive. She would be a lovely 91 years of age now. She was born August 25th, 1927. She was the United States Undersecretary of State for Arms Control and International Security Affairs from 77 to 80. She was named to this post. It was the highest position ever held by women in the United States Department of State. Prior to joining the State Department, Benson served as president of the League of Women Voters from 68 to 74 and Massachusetts Secretary of Human Services from 75 to 77. So she was also a member of the Lafayette College Board of Trustees since 1985. So she was a very influential woman when it wasn't the time for women to be influential. She kind of paved the way for women. And having the highest position of power ever in the United States Department of State is quite an honor. Michael Blumenthal, age 93, as far as I can tell, he is also still alive. Werner Michael Blumenthal, born January 3rd, 1926, is a German-born American business leader, economist, and political advisor who served as the United States Secretary of Treasury under President Carter from 77 to 79. He escaped Nazi Germany with his Jewish family in 1939, forced to spend World War II living in the ghetto Japanese-occupied Shanghai, China until 47. And please keep in mind that I am just reading the Google search general bios to you, and I'm not narrating or interjecting any of my own comments into this whatsoever. So, when I say words like that, please understand that it's just in their own bios, okay? So before being appointed to a cabinet position with the newly elected President Jimmy Carter, Blumenthal had become a successful business leader and had already held administrative positions under Kennedy and Johnson. As a member of the Carter administration, he helped guide economic policy and took part in reestablishing ties with China. After he resigned, he became chairman and CEO of Burroughs Corporation and Unisys, spelled like Universal Systems, UNISYS, followed by 17 years as the director of the restored Jewish Museum in Berlin. He is the author of The Invisible Wall, 1998, Counterpoint Press, and From Exile to Washington, a memoir of leadership in the 20th century, published 2013 by the Overlook Press. So, moving on, Robert Bowie. He has passed away November 2nd, 2013. He was an American diplomat and scholar. Bowie graduated from Princeton in 91 and received a law degree from Harvard in 1934. Turned down offers to work with corporate lawyers in New York. Went to go work with his father's firm in Baltimore. Joined the Army. He was a commissioned officer with the Pentagon and in occupied Germany from 45 to 46. 46, he retired as lieutenant colonel, taught at Harvard until 55. He was the youngest professor at the school. He served as director of policy planning from 53 to 57. Co-founder with Henry Kissinger of Harvard's Center for International Affairs in 1958. Counselor for State Department from 66 to 68. He was a member of the Council of Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, the American Law Institute, and the American Academy of Diplomacy. He is a recipient of the Legion of Merit and the Commander's Cross of the Order of Merit of the Federal Republic of Germany. He served as CIA Chief of National Intelligence Officer from 77 to 79, and he passed away at the amazing age of 104 years old. So that's where we're going to stop this video. I know they're getting kind of long, but I think if we just take them half a list at a time, then you'll be able to better correlate all of these people together and just see how all these names keep recurring. In fact, the next one that we're going to be looking at, Andrew Felton Brimmer, also ties into the Federal Reserve System and Harvard and Fulbright Scholarship, and just every name keeps recurring that is relative to all of these members of the Trilateral Commission that was created by the Council of Foreign Relations. So, and this is during the Carter administration, but we're coming off of the back of two former presidencies, or two former presidents, if you will, and just ushering in the same corruption like a revolving door. So, okay, I'm going to get into the next video right away. So thanks for joining me, and we'll see you soon.